This is the AHRMM Updates podcast featuring Mike Schiller and hosted by Justin Poulin. Tune in every month as we highlight trends, strategies, and solutions from the field to advance the healthcare supply chain. And now, Mike and Justin.
Welcome to the AHRMM Updates podcast with Mike Schiller, and I'm your host, Justin Poulin, and we have got a number of good conversations. One follow-up from the last podcast in January. We'll be talking a little bit about that roadmap report. We also have a spring summit coming up, and we've got a great on the fringe for you that maybe you haven't heard about, which is kind of the point of that segment. Mike, thanks so much for coming on and joining me once again.
It's great to be here as always, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity.
So let's talk about the roadmap report. This is something that you talked a little bit about because you hadn't had a meeting yet. There's reimagining AHRMM going on here in 2024. When we recorded, you had a meeting scheduled to review the results of the roadmap for AHRMM and some of the recommendations there. You know, I know that there's still more work to be done here, but maybe another update on where we're at in the process and maybe some initial insights that you feel comfortable sharing with the audience.
Absolutely. So last week, or actually, it's 2 weeks ago now, the consulting group, 360 Live Media, presented us with the roadmap report that basically was an intake of 60 plus supply chain leaders from across the healthcare field, either through focus groups, one-on-one interviews, or even survey responses. And they came back with an extremely comprehensive roadmap and identifying a number of different opportunities for AHRMM, again, based on that feedback from those 60 plus leaders. So we're really excited. It was a great meeting. We really drilled down into a lot of details, a lot to digest. Actually, I've got a meeting next week with our board where we will begin to review the report from the consultants. We're going to align that to the strategic plan that we developed last year and then identify what those opportunities are that we want to focus on this year, right? We'll force rank them, right? We'd love to do everything at once, but we're not going to be able to do everything at once. So let's force rank and let's look at what those opportunities are that are going to be very meaningful and beneficial to our members, to the supply chain professionals out there across the field. A lot of ideas around content and actually getting into some different areas, maybe exploring more blogs with subject matter experts. They did talk about podcasts, which, of course, we've been doing this with you now. This is our second year, and this has been just a wonderful, wonderful partnership here. So a lot of neat things. A couple of things I don't want to spoil the surprise of it, but I think there's some really good opportunities for us to deliver the content that our members have been asking for. And a lot of it really starts with developing what I'll call some of these SME resources so that we can extend the individuals that we work with to help us in the development of this content, right? Instead of trying to do it all in-house or with just a handful of SMEs, how do we expand that group and how do we work with others? There's so much expertise out there and so many great areas and topics to cover. It's just a matter of identifying what the topics are and who the best folks are to work with for that topic, and let's rock and roll. So more to come on this for sure. But for right now, we're looking to just work with the board. Let's identify what those strategic initiatives are that we want to work on this year, and let's go.
Well, yeah, you've got a vision for 2024, and I really like that you're going to be incorporating the findings of the report and really that roadmap. But it's always great because people hear, oh, you know, we've got a vision, we've got some direction here. There are some key areas we're going to target. But then until the big announcement comes, you sometimes wonder, hey, what's going on? What's the next step? So I appreciate the update there and the fact that you'll be working with the board here shortly to start laying out those initiatives. That's really exciting. And we've got an event coming up just 2 months away, the Spring Summit, April 9th to the 11th. So why don't you tell everybody what is going to be involved in the Spring Summit?
Yeah, thanks. The Spring Summit is an event. This is going to be our first time hosting this event. It's modeled after our UDI forum. So this is going to be a 3-day event, as you mentioned, April 9th through the 11th. We're going to have 6 sessions over the course of those 3 days. And really, we're looking at focusing on the changing world of the healthcare supply chain and really the theme of transformational excellence. I love that term. Operational excellence to me speaks to I'm improving my operations incrementally, right? I'm improving what I already do, and I just keep improving that. Where transformational excellence, again, in my mind, speaks to I'm doing something completely different here. I'm approaching this from an entirely different standpoint, an entirely different perspective. And I think that really mirrors what the supply chain has been doing post COVID, right? We are operating very differently than we were pre-COVID. And so transformational excellence is our theme. Again, we're going to have 6 sessions over 3 days. Day 1 is going to be focusing on navigating the human element. And this is going to really speak to leadership, career advancement, workforce, what's shaping the workforce, the dynamics out there that are shaping the workforce. Day 2 is going to be focusing on financial fortitude. We're going to be looking at strategic cost management and striking a balance between cost management within your healthcare supply chain, within your organization, and optimizing revenue cycle, looking beyond cost, just beyond product cost, right? There's so many other areas that we could be driving financial excellence within our organizations. And then the last day is collaborative synergy. And this builds upon our supply chain week theme of the power of partnerships. And we're going to be looking at how do we move beyond transactional relationships with some of our key trading partners, right? How do we build transformative alliances with these trading partners? And then we're going to wrap the day up with a focus on AI. I can tell you that this was probably one of the top themes that came out of that roadmap report, right? Was AI. Everybody's talking about AI. You and I were talking about it just before you hit the record button.
So, we spent about 30 minutes on the topic, as a matter of fact. You want to talk about transformational change. That's disruptive change. Whether we like it or not, it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we want to talk about that. What does that look like in the healthcare supply chain? And we're obviously seeing aspects of it on the clinical side, the diagnostic side, certainly the logistics side. What does it look like in our supply chain operations, right? In those operational workflows. So it's going to be a really, really good summit. A lot of great content that I think checks all the boxes of the items that are on top of people's minds.
Well, it's so funny because we started this off talking about reimagining AHRMM, and I feel like that is transformational change. That's transformational change is reimagining how we do what we do. And so that's very much in that theme. And the other thing you said on the heels of that was to create more SME content. And here we are following right up on that, talking about some really excellent SME content in the spring summit. So just want to emphasize that. We've also had a couple of great interviews already to start the year. Preston Hall talking about the farm or the AHRMM fellowship, and then Bill Brewer talking about work around sustainability. So some great podcast conversations. We have our final segment here. It is the On the Fringe segment. So this one's interesting. You brought it up, and I actually hadn't caught wind of this. I suppose that's somewhat of a pun, but we're going to be talking about helium and the helium reserve. So this is the thing that everybody should be kind of keeping an eye out for, as it could have a significant impact. Maybe it doesn't, but it's certainly interesting talking about potentially selling the federal helium reserve. Mike, what's that all about, and what are the implications?
Yeah, that's something we've been keeping our eye on for a while. I know AdvaMed has been front and center on this. AHA, we've been front and center on this and having conversations. What it boils down to is the Bureau of Land Management is selling the federal helium reserve. There's a lot of concern over the sale of this reserve. Helium is used, as we all know, in the healthcare side of things, in MRIs, right? It's also used by semiconductor manufacturers. And something that I wasn't aware of is helium is used in the treatment of asthma and some other respiratory problems. So I did not realize that it was used for helium. But in any event, what this centers around is it's not so much that there's concern that they're selling the land, this helium reserve. More so, the concern revolves around ensuring a seamless transition in the sale of this land, and that in that transition, we're not seeing any hiccups in the distribution or availability of helium, right? We want to ensure that there's a continuous access to domestic helium. So again, it's not so much, my gosh, they're selling it. It's, look, you're going to sell it. Okay, we understand that. Let's make sure that we have everything in place so that we do not have a disruption to domestic helium, that we can ensure a steady flow of helium as we have in the years past, and we want to see that continue. So just something to keep your eyes on. And there was a report that went out, I want to say last week about this sale or proposed sale in the news. So definitely, I think it's getting a little bit more visibility. Again, we've been tracking this for, since probably middle of last year through the Supply Chain Resource Council. So, but a good on the fringe for folks to keep their eyes on.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sounds like it's something that you've been keeping your eyes on for a while now. It'll be interesting to see what direction we go in on this. And Mike, as always, thank you so much for the updates on what's happening with AHRMM, and also highlighting some great content opportunity to engage with AHRMM and really grow professionally in your knowledge base. I think that AI conversation at the spring summit it's a must attend. I think that is just content that everybody is still that's almost like an on the fringe that's no longer on the fringe, right, Mike? And so great conversations today, and appreciate the updates.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Great to meet with you again, and wish you a good weekend here, my friend.
All right, everybody, we're going to be back again next month with another update, but that's going to do it for this AHRMM Updates podcast with myself, Justin Poulin, and Mike Schiller.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the AHRMM Updates podcast. For additional resources, visit our website at ahrmm.org. That's AHRMM.org. Tune in next month for another edition of the AHRMM Updates podcast.